The transport ship docked with a soft hum. The metal doors opened slowly, and cold air rushed into the waiting area. Station Harmony 7 was one of the largest trading posts in the outer sectors. Thousands of aliens from different worlds lived and worked here. They had never seen a human before. Lieutenant Yuna stepped out of the ship. She was a small woman with black hair tied back in a neat bun. Her uniform was simple, dark blue with silver buttons. She carried a single bag over her shoulder. Her eyes looked around the station with calm curiosity. The moment her foot touched the floor, every alarm in the station screamed to life. Red lights flashed everywhere. Sirens wailed so loud that many aliens covered their ears. The pleasant voice of the station computer suddenly changed to something cold and sharp. Warning, warning, apex predator detected. Species, human. Classification, extinction level threat. All personnel, maintain safe distance. Security teams, respond immediately. Yuna stopped walking. She looked up at the flashing lights with a confused expression. She had read the reports about alien stations, but nobody had told her about this kind of welcome. Within seconds, she was surrounded. 12 security drones floated down from the ceiling. Their weapons pointed directly at her chest. Behind the drones, a team of guards arrived. They wore heavy armor and carried energy rifles. Their hands were shaking. Yuna raised her hands slowly. She made sure to move very carefully. She did not want anyone to panic more than they already had. "Hello," she said in a gentle voice. "I am Lieutenant Yuna from Earth. I am here for the diplomatic exchange program. I have all my documents ready." Nobody answered her. The guards just stared with wide eyes. In the command center, high above the docking area, Commander Tejo watched everything on the monitors. He was a Valari, a species that looked somewhat like large cats walking on two legs. His fur was gray with black stripes, and his yellow eyes were fixed on the small human female on his screen. His claws dug into the armrests of his chair. "Computer," he said, his voice rough. "Confirm threat assessment." "Confirmed, Commander." "Species human. Homeworld Earth. Threat level. Maximum. Humans are classified as apex predators. They possess exceptional endurance, pattern recognition, and pack hunting abilities. Historical data shows they have caused extinction of numerous species on their homeworld. They can adapt to almost any environment. They form emotional bonds with prey species to manipulate them. Exercise extreme caution. Tejo felt his fur stand up. He had heard stories about humans. Every species in the galaxy had heard the stories. They were the monsters that came from a death world, a planet so dangerous that everything there evolved to kill or be killed. And somehow, humans had come out on top. They could run for days without stopping. They could survive wounds that would kill any other species. They ate both plants and meat. They could see patterns and predict behavior. They worked in groups and never gave up hunting their prey. And now one of them was standing in his station. "Why is there a human here?" Tejo demanded. "Who approved this?" His assistant, a nervous young Valari named Jinho, pulled up the files quickly. "Sir, the Galactic Council approved a cultural exchange program 3 months ago. They wanted to improve relations with Earth. We were selected to host the first human visitor. And nobody thought to warn us? The notification was sent, sir." "Perhaps it was overlooked." Tejo wanted to scream. Overlooked. A apex predator was coming to his station, and the message was overlooked. On the monitor, the human female still had her hands raised. She was talking to the guards in a soft voice. Some of the guards had lowered their weapons slightly. This worried Tejo even more. The computer had said humans could form emotional bonds to manipulate their prey. Was she already doing it? "I want eyes on her at all times," Tejo ordered. "Every moment, every second. I want to know what she eats, where she goes, and who she talks to. Assign our best officers." "Yes, Commander." Down in the docking area, Yuna was trying very hard to stay calm. She understood fear. She had felt it many times herself. But standing surrounded by weapons while aliens looked at her like she was a monster that was new. "I promise I am not here to hurt anyone," she said slowly. "I am just a guest. I want to learn about your cultures and share mine." That is all. One of the guards, a tall Valari with brown fur, finally spoke. His voice shook slightly. You are a predator. Your species hunts, kills. Yuna thought about this carefully before answering. Yes, my ancestors were hunters, long ago. But now we are explorers. We come in peace. The guards looked at each other. They did not seem convinced. Finally, an officer arrived. He was older, with gray fur around his face. He looked at Yuna with careful eyes, then at the guards. Stand down, he ordered. The human is an official guest of the station. We will escort her to her quarters. The guards hesitated, but they obeyed. The drones pulled back to a safe distance but did not leave completely. They would follow Yuna wherever she went. The older officer approached Yuna. He stopped 3 meters away, the recommended safe distance according to protocol. I am Officer Minho, he said stiffly. I will take you to your quarters. Please follow me. Do not make any sudden movements. Yuna nodded and picked up her bag. As she walked behind Officer Minho, she could feel hundreds of eyes watching her. Aliens of all shapes and sizes had gathered to see the apex predator. Some hid behind corners. Others watched from windows high above. A few small children were quickly pulled away by their parents. Yuna felt a sadness settle in her chest. She had hoped this mission would be a chance to make friends among the stars. Instead, she was being treated like a dangerous animal. The walk to her quarters took 15 minutes. Officer Minho walked quickly, always staying ahead of her. He never looked back. But Yuna could see his ears turning toward her with every step. He was listening for any sign of attack. Her quarters were in a quiet section of the station. The door was thick and heavy. Yuna noticed there were extra locks on the outside locks that could only be opened from the corridor, not from inside the room. Your quarters, Officer Minho said. Meals will be delivered. Please do not leave without an escort. Someone will come for you in the morning for orientation. Thank you, Yuna said with a small smile. Officer Minho flinched at the smile. He had read that humans showed their teeth as a sign of friendliness, but his instincts told him teeth meant danger. He left quickly, and the door slid shut behind him. Yuna stood alone in her new room. It was small but clean. There was a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out at the stars. She put her bag on the bed and sat down slowly. Outside her door, she could hear guards taking their positions. She was being watched, guarded, contained. She thought about her grandmother back on Earth. Her grandmother had always said that first impressions were not everything. People could change their minds if you gave them time and showed them kindness. Yuna looked out at the stars and made a quiet promise to herself. She would show these aliens that humans were not monsters. She would prove that they had nothing to fear. She just needed a chance. In the command center, Tejo watched the human sit quietly in her room. She was not pacing like a caged predator. She was not testing the walls or the locks. She was just sitting and looking at the stars. What is she doing? He muttered. Unknown, sir, Jinho replied. Perhaps she is planning something. Keep watching, Tejo ordered. Apex predators are patient. She is waiting for the right moment. But somewhere deep in his mind, a small voice wondered if maybe, just maybe, they were wrong about humans. He pushed that thought away. It was too dangerous to hope. The next morning came slowly for Yuna. She had not slept well. The bed was designed for species with very different bodies, and the constant sound of guards moving outside her door had kept her awake. But she got up anyway, washed her face, and prepared for the day. A knock came at exactly 7 o'clock station time. Yuna opened the door to find Officer Minho waiting with 2 guards behind him. All 3 of them took a small step back when the door opened. Good morning, Yuna said warmly. I hope you slept well. Officer Minho blinked. He had not expected the predator to ask about his sleep. Yes. Thank you. Please follow me. Commander Tejo wishes to speak with you. Yuna followed them through the station corridors. The hallways were wide and bright, filled with plants and soft lighting. It would have been beautiful if not for the way everyone ran away when they saw her coming. A group of small blue aliens saw her and immediately pressed themselves against the wall. A family of bird-like creatures grabbed their children and hurried around a corner. A tall being with many arms dropped the packages it was carrying and froze in terror. Yuna tried smiling at everyone, but that only seemed to make things worse. She reminded herself that showing teeth was a threat in many cultures. She stopped smiling. The command center was at the heart of the station. The doors opened to reveal a large room filled with screens and computers. Commander Tejo stood in the center, his gray fur neat and his yellow eyes sharp. Around him stood several officers, all watching Yuna with great caution. "Lieutenant Yuna," Tejo said. His voice was formal and cold. "Welcome to Station Harmony 7. Thank you, Commander. I am grateful for your hospitality." Tejo almost laughed. Hospitality. He was treating her like a bomb that might explode at any moment. And she was thanking him for hospitality. Humans were strange creatures. "The Galactic Council has ordered us to host you for 6 standard months," Tejo continued. "During this time, you will learn about our cultures, and we will learn about yours. You will be assigned quarters in the residential section." Yuna nodded. "That sounds wonderful. I look forward to meeting the residents." Several officers made quiet sounds of concern. Tejo raised a hand to silence them. "You will be assigned to Section 7B. This section houses our diplomatic guests, including the family of Ambassador Biol of the Valari High Council." This decision had not been made lightly. Tejo had argued against it for hours, but the council had insisted. They wanted the human close to important guests as a sign of trust. Tejo thought it was madness. He was putting his ambassador's family in the same corridor as an apex predator, but he had his own plan. He would watch the humans so closely that she could not take a breath without him knowing. "You will have an escort at all times," Tejo said firmly. "For your own safety, of course." "Of course," Yuna agreed. She understood what was really happening, but she did not argue. "Corporal Hana will be your primary escort. She is one of our finest officers." A young Valari stepped forward. She was smaller than the others, with cream-colored fur and large green eyes. She looked at Yuna with a mixture of fear and determination. Her tail was puffed up, a sign of stress, but she held her head high. "Corporal Hana," Yuna said gently. "It is nice to meet you." "Corporal," Hana swallowed hard. "Likewise, Lieutenant." Tejo watched this exchange carefully. The human was being polite. Too polite. It had to be a trick. Predators did not become friendly with their watchers unless they were planning something. "Corporal Hana will report directly to me," Tejo added. "Any unusual behavior will be noted." "I understand, Commander. I will do my best to be a good guest." Tejo nodded stiffly. "See that you do. Corporal, take the human to her new quarters." Hana led Yuna out of the command center and through more corridors. Unlike Officer Minho, Hana walked beside Yuna, rather than in front of her. This was partly because of her training. She wanted to watch the predator closely, and partly because she was too scared to turn her back on a human. "How long have you been a security officer?" Yuna asked as they walked. Hana's ears twitched. 3 years, since I finished my training. Do you like your work? It is important work. Hana chose her words carefully. Protecting the station, keeping people safe. That is admirable. On Earth, we respect those who protect others very much. Hana did not know what to say to this. She had expected the human to be aggressive or threatening. Instead, Yuna spoke softly and asked simple questions. It was confusing. They arrived at Section 7B. The corridor was quieter here, with fewer people walking around. Each door was marked with a name and species. Near the end of the corridor, Yuna saw a door decorated with colorful drawings. "That is the ambassador's family quarters," Hana explained. Ambassador Biol, her partner Suman, and their 3 cubs. "Cubs?" Yuna asked with sudden interest. "They have children?" Hana noticed the change in the human's voice. It had become warmer, almost excited. This matched what the computer had said about humans forming attachments. She made a mental note to include this in her report. "Yes, 3 cubs. They are young, so please do not frighten them." Yuna's expression became very serious. I would never frighten children. I promise you that. Something about the way she said it made Hana pause. The words felt honest. But she reminded herself that predators were good at lying. Yuna's quarters were 3 doors away from the ambassador's family. The room was larger than her previous one, with actual windows instead of screens. There was a comfortable bed, a small kitchen area, and a bathroom with running water. This is much nicer, Yuna said with genuine happiness. Thank you, Corporal. It is standard diplomatic housing. Hana stood at the door, unsure if she should enter. I will be stationed nearby. If you need anything, you can call me through the communication panel. Yuna began unpacking her bag. She pulled out clothes, books, and several small containers. Hana watched with great attention. The computer had told her to note everything the human did. What are those? Hana asked, pointing at the containers. Personal care items, Yuna explained. She held up a bottle. This is soap. For washing. This one is shampoo. For hair. And this is lotion. To keep skin soft. Hana had never seen such things before. Valari cleaned themselves differently. They had special oils in their fur that kept them clean. The idea of using liquids to wash seemed strange and inefficient. Humans must wash themselves with liquids. Yes, usually with water. We don't have self-cleaning fur like your species. Yuna smiled, then remembered not to show teeth. You are lucky. Bathing takes a lot of time. Hana tilted her head. The human was making a small joke. Predators did not make jokes with their watchers. Or did they? She reported everything to Commander Tejo that evening. She described the human's quarters, her belongings, and every word she had said. Tejo listened with great focus. She asked about the cubs? He repeated sharply. Yes, Commander. Her voice changed when she heard about them. She became very interested. Tejo's claws extended slightly. This was what he had feared. Humans were known to target the young and weak. It was basic predator behavior. Double the guards near the ambassador's quarters, he ordered. I want someone watching that corridor at all times. The human must not be allowed near those cubs. Yes, Commander. But even as he gave the order, Tejo felt uneasy. He did not trust it. In her quarters, Yuna finished unpacking and sat by the window. She could hear the soft sounds of the station around her, the hum of machines, the distant voices of aliens, the footsteps of guards outside her door. She thought about the ambassador's cubs. She had always loved children, no matter what species they were. She hoped she would get a chance to meet them someday, but she understood that might take time. Trust was not given freely. It had to be earned. She looked out at the stars and made her plans. She would be patient. She would be kind. She would show them that humans were not the monsters they feared. One day at a time. Outside her door, Corporal Hana settled into her watch position. She had brought a data pad to record her observations. The first entry was simple. Day 1. Human appears calm, showed interest in cubs, brought strange washing liquids, no aggressive behavior observed, remains under close surveillance. She looked at the closed door and wondered what the human was doing inside. She did not know that inside, Yuna was wondering the same thing about her. 2 weeks passed on Station Harmony 7. Yuna had settled into a quiet routine. She woke early, ate the meals that were delivered to her door, and spent her days reading about alien cultures on her data pad. Sometimes, she was allowed to walk through certain approved sections of the station. Always with Corporal Hana close behind. The aliens were still afraid of her. They still ran when they saw her coming. But some of them had started to slow down a little. A few had even nodded at her from a safe distance. Progress, Yuna thought. Slow progress. On this particular morning, something different happened. Yuna was in her quarters, organizing her books on the small shelf near the window. The door was open slightly because the ventilation system was being repaired, and her room was too warm. She had asked permission to leave it open, and Commander Tejo had agreed after placing 2 extra guards in the corridor. She was humming a soft song when she heard a small noise at the door. Yuna turned around slowly. Standing in her doorway were 3 small Valari cubs. They were tiny, barely reaching her knees, with fluffy fur in different colors. One was orange, with white spots. One was gray like Commander Tejo, and the smallest one was cream-colored, almost like Corporal Hana. The cubs stared at Yuna with huge, curious eyes. Yuna froze. She did not want to scare them. She did not want to make any sudden moves. She stayed perfectly still and spoke in the gentlest voice she had. "Hello there," she said softly. "Are you lost?" The orange cub, who seemed to be the bravest, took a step into the room. "You are the human," he said. His voice was high and squeaky. "Mother said you are a monster." Yuna's heart hurt a little at these words, but she kept her face calm. "I understand why she might say that. I know I seem scary." "You do not look scary," the gray cub said. She tilted her head just like Corporal Hana did. "You look soft. You have no fur," the smallest cream-colored cub added. "Does it not hurt?" Being so bare, Yuna almost laughed. These children were not afraid of her. They were curious about her. It was the most wonderful thing that had happened since she arrived. "No, it does not hurt," she answered. "Humans have skin instead of fur. It is different, but it works well for us." The orange cub walked further into the room. He looked around at everything with wide eyes. "What are those?" He pointed at her bottles of soap and shampoo on the bathroom shelf. "Those are for washing," Yuna explained. "Would you like to see?" All three cubs nodded eagerly. They followed Yuna to the small bathroom. She picked up the bottle of soap and squeezed a small amount into the sink basin. Then, she turned on the water. The cubs gasped as bubbles began to form. "What is that?" the gray cub asked, reaching out a paw. "They are called bubbles. They are made from soap and air." The orange cub touched a bubble, and it popped on his paw. He laughed with delight. "It tickles." Soon all three cubs were playing with the bubbles. They put their paws in the water and splashed. They blew on the bubbles and watched them float. The smallest one got foam on his nose and sneezed, which made all of them laugh. Yuna watched them with a warm feeling in her chest. She had missed this. She had missed the simple joy of children playing. "Can we wash our fur with the bubbles?" the gray cub asked. "Like you do?" Yuna hesitated. She was not sure if this was allowed, but the cubs looked so excited, and she did not want to disappoint them. "Let me check if it is safe for your fur first," she said carefully. She read the ingredients on her soap bottle. It was very gentle soap, made for sensitive skin. It should not harm Valari fur. But she tested it first, on a tiny spot of the orange cub's paw. When nothing bad happened, she felt it was safe to continue. "All right," she said. "But we must be careful not to get soap in your eyes." "Eyes do not like soap." The cubs nodded seriously. They were very good listeners. Yuna filled the large basin with warm water and added some soap. The bubbles grew thick and fluffy. One by one, the cubs climbed into the basin. It was just big enough for all three of them. They splashed and played. They rubbed the bubbles into their fur. The smallest cub made a bubble beard and pretended to be old. The orange cub made towers of foam on his head. The gray cub just floated peacefully with her eyes closed. Yuna sat beside the basin and helped them wash the parts they could not reach. She was very gentle, very careful. She talked to them in a soft voice and told them about Earth. She described the oceans and the forests. She told them about rain and snow. She explained what dogs and cats were, and how humans kept them as friends. "You keep predators as friends?" the orange cub asked with shock. "Yes, we love them very much. We take care of them and they take care of us." The cubs looked at each other with amazement. Outside in the corridor, Corporal Hana had just arrived for her shift. She noticed immediately that the guards near Yuna's door looked nervous. "What is wrong?" she asked. "The ambassador's cubs," one guard said with fear in his voice. "They are missing. We thought they were in their quarters, but..." Hana's blood went cold. The cubs were missing, and the human's door was open. She ran to Yuna's quarters and burst through the door without thinking. Her hand was on her weapon. Her heart was pounding. She expected to find something terrible. Instead, she found the three cubs sitting in a basin full of bubbles, laughing as Yuna gently poured clean water over their heads to rinse the soap from their fur. Hana stood frozen in the doorway. "Corporal Hana," the smallest cub called out happily. "The human is washing us. It feels so nice. Look at my fur," the gray cub said proudly. "It is so fluffy now." "The bubbles are amazing," the orange cub added. "You should try them." Yuna looked up at Hana with careful eyes. She could see the fear on the young officer's face. She could see her hand on her weapon. "I am sorry," Yuna said calmly. "They came to my door and were curious about my soap. I should have called for someone, but they were having so much fun. I did not want to scare them by summoning guards." Hana did not know what to do. Every instinct told her this was wrong. An apex predator had the ambassador's cubs alone in her quarters. This should be a disaster. This should be an attack. But the cubs were laughing. They were happy. They were cleaner than Hana had ever seen them. Are they all right?" Hana asked slowly. "They are wonderful," Yuna said with a gentle smile that she quickly hid. "They are very smart and very curious. You should be proud of them." Hana lowered her hand from her weapon. She did not know what to feel. I need to report this," she said weakly. "Of course. Please do what you must." Hana backed out of the room slowly. She activated her communication device with shaking hands. "Commander Tejo, this is Corporal Hana. I have found the ambassador's cubs. Where are they? Are they safe?" Hana looked back into the room. The cubs were now wrapped in soft towels that Yuna had provided. They looked warm and content. The smallest one was already falling asleep against the human's side. "They are safe, sir." They are in the human's quarters." There was a long silence on the communication line. "Repeat that, Corporal." "The cubs are in the human's quarters, sir." She gave them a bath. With soap. They are happy." Another long silence. "I am coming there immediately. Do not leave them alone with the human." "Yes, sir." Hana stepped back into the room and stood guard. But she did not draw her weapon again. She watched as Yuna carefully dried each cub's fur with gentle hands. She watched as the human spoke softly to them, telling them stories about fluffy creatures on Earth, called rabbits. The cubs listened with wonder in their eyes, and something in Hana's mind began to change. Commander Tejo arrived at Section 7B with 6 armed guards. His fur was standing up along his spine, and his claws were fully extended. He had prepared himself for the worst. He had imagined blood and screaming and tragedy. What he found made no sense at all. The 3 cubs were sitting on the human's bed, wrapped in soft towels. Their fur was fluffy and clean, sticking out in all directions as it dried. The smallest one was actually asleep, curled up in a ball with his head resting on a pillow. The other 2 were eating small crackers that the human had given them from her personal food supply. Yuna stood near the window, keeping a respectful distance from the cubs now that the commander had arrived. Her hands were visible at her sides. She did not look aggressive. She looked worried. "Commander Tejo," she said quietly. "I can explain." Tejo ignored her. He rushed to the cubs and examined them with frantic eyes. He checked their fur, their eyes, their ears. He sniffed them for any sign of injury or distress. They smelled like flowers, some kind of earth flowers he did not recognize. "Grandfather," the orange cub said happily. Ambassador Biol was Tejo's daughter, which made these cubs his grandchildren. "The human washed us. We smell so good now. She has special water that makes bubbles," the gray cub added. It was amazing. Tejo looked at his grandchildren with confusion. They were not scared. They were not hurt. They were excited and happy and fluffy. "What did you do to them?" he demanded, turning to Yuna. "I gave them a bath, Commander. Only a bath. They were curious about my soap, and I showed them how it works. I used very gentle soap, safe for sensitive skin. I was careful with their eyes and ears." "Why would you do this?" Yuna tilted her head slightly. "Because they asked me to. Because they were having fun. Because..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. Because they are children. And children deserve to play. And be happy. Tejo did not know how to respond. This was not what predators did. Predators hunted. They killed. They did not bathe cubs and give them crackers and tell them stories. Commander, Corporal Hana spoke up from the doorway. I watched everything. The human was very gentle with them. She never raised her voice. She never made any threatening movements. She treated them like they were precious. Tejo looked at his young officer. Hana had been trained to observe and report without emotion. But right now, there was something different in her eyes. Something like doubt. Return the cubs to their quarters, Tejo ordered. Now, the guards carefully collected the sleeping cub and guided the other two toward the door. The orange cub turned back and waved at Yuna. Thank you for the bath, he called out. Can we come back tomorrow? Yuna glanced at Tejo before answering. That is not up to me, little one. But I would like that very much. The cubs were led away. Tejo remained in the room with Hana and two guards. He stared at Yuna with his yellow eyes, trying to understand her. You could have hurt them, he said slowly. You could have used them as hostages. You could have done anything. Why did you not? Yuna looked directly at him. Because hurting children is wrong. On Earth, on this station, everywhere. I would never harm a child. Never. The computer says your species has killed many young of other species. Yes. Long ago. Before we knew better. Yuna's voice became sad. We have made many mistakes. We have hurt many creatures. But we have also learned from those mistakes. We try to be better now. Tejo did not know if he believed her. But he could not deny what he had seen. His grandchildren were unharmed. They were happy. They had been cared for by the very predator he had feared. I want a full report on my desk within the hour, he told Hana. Every detail. Yes, Commander. He left without another word. His mind was spinning with thoughts he did not want to have. Hana stayed behind for a moment. She looked at Yuna with new eyes. You really meant it, she said quietly. When you said you would never hurt children, you meant it. Yes, Yuna replied simply. I meant it. Hana nodded once and left to write her report. In the command center, Tejo read the report 3 times. He could not find any fault with it. Every observation, every detail, every moment, it all pointed to the same impossible conclusion. The apex predator had cared for his grandchildren better than many of his own officers would have. This makes no sense, he muttered. Sir? Jinho asked carefully. The computer says humans are extinction-level threats. It says they hunt and kill without mercy. But this human, she washed my grandchildren's fur. She fed them snacks. She told them stories about soft creatures on her homeworld. Perhaps she is an unusual example of her species, or perhaps our information is incomplete. Tejo pulled up the files on humans again. He read through the threat assessments, the behavioral predictions, the historical data. All of it painted humans as monsters, but then he noticed something he had missed before. A small note at the bottom of one file. Humans display exceptional protective behavior toward young of any species. They have been observed adopting and caring for offspring of predator and prey alike. Further study recommended. Tejo leaned back in his chair. Further study recommended. No one had done that study. Everyone had been too afraid. Until now. I want to speak with the human, he said suddenly. Privately. No guards in the room. Jinho's eyes went wide. Sir, that is extremely dangerous. Protocol requires. I know what protocol requires. But I need to understand this creature. And I cannot do that while hiding behind weapons. Word spread quickly through the station. Commander Tejo was going to meet with the apex predator alone. Many thought he was mad. Some thought he was brave. A few wondered if he was right. The meeting took place that evening in a small conference room. Tejo entered alone and found Yuna already seated at the table. She stood up when he came in, then sat back down when he gestured for her to do so. They sat in silence for a long moment. My grandchildren like you, Tejo finally said. They are lovely children. You should be very proud. I am. Taeho studied her face. The orange one is named Junho. The gray one is named Minji. And the small cream one is named Taeyang. Those are beautiful names. My daughter chose them. Ambassador Biol. She was very upset when she heard what happened today. Yuna looked down. I am sorry. I did not mean to cause trouble. She was upset because she was afraid, Taeho continued. But when she saw the cubs, when they told her about the bubbles and the stories, she became less afraid. She said that perhaps she had been wrong about humans. Yuna looked up with hope in her eyes. Really? Really? Taeho sighed heavily. I do not understand you. Everything I have been taught says you are a monster. But you do not act like a monster. 8. Because I am not one, Yuna said gently. I am just a person. Like you. I have fears, and hopes, and dreams. I want to make friends, and learn new things, and help others when I can. That is all. But your species has killed so many. Yes. And we carry that shame with us. But we also protect. We also love. We also care. Yuna's voice became stronger. Humans will travel across the galaxy for someone they love. We will fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We will adopt any creature, any species, any being that needs care. Taeho thought about this. He thought about his grandchildren, sleeping peacefully in their quarters, still smelling like flowers. He thought about the human who had given them joy instead of fear. Perhaps, he said slowly, our threat assessments need to be updated. Yuna smiled carefully, without showing teeth. Perhaps they do. The meeting lasted 2 hours. When Taeho left, he felt like a different person. He was still cautious. He was still careful. But he was no longer afraid. And in his report to the Galactic Council that night, he wrote something that would change everything. Recommend reassessment of human threat classification. Species demonstrates strong protective instincts, especially toward young. May pose less danger than previously assumed. Continued observation advised. It was a small step. But it was a step in the right direction. 3 months had passed since the bubble bath incident. Station Harmony 7 had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Yuna was no longer followed by armed guards. She walked freely through the corridors with Corporal Hana at her side, not as a watcher, but as a friend. The aliens still noticed her when she passed by, but now many of them waved or nodded in greeting. Some even stopped to talk with her. The cubs visited her quarters almost every day. Their parents had given permission after many long conversations with Commander Taeho. Yuna taught them games from Earth. She showed them how to make paper airplanes and told them stories about brave explorers. She brushed their fur when it got tangled and made them special treats from her food supplies. Other cubs began to visit too. Word had spread among the young ones that the human was not scary at all. She was soft and kind and always had time for them. Soon, Yuna's quarters became known as the safest and most fun place on the station. The parents were slower to trust, but they came around eventually. They saw how happy their children were after visiting the human. They heard the stories about bubble baths and paper airplanes and songs about Earth. They started to wonder if maybe they had been wrong. Ambassador Biol was one of the first to change her mind completely. She came to thank Yuna personally for being so good to her children. I was afraid of you, Biol admitted. When I heard you were coming to this station, I wanted to take my family and leave. I thought you would hurt us. I understand, Yuna said kindly. Fear is natural when you do not know someone. But my children knew you before I did. They saw past my fear and found the truth. Biol's green eyes were warm. You are not a monster. Lieutenant Yuna. You are a guardian. Yuna felt tears in her eyes. She had been called many things since arriving at the station. Monster. Predator. Threat. But Guardian was new. Guardian was beautiful. Thank you, Ambassador. That means more to me than you know. Commander Taeho had been watching all of this with great interest. He had kept detailed records of every interaction between the human and the station residents. He had documented the fear that slowly turned to curiosity, the curiosity that became friendship. When his report reached the Galactic Council, it caused quite a stir. The human has integrated successfully into station life, Tejo wrote. She has formed positive relationships with dozens of residents, particularly young ones. No aggressive behavior has been observed. Recommend immediate reassessment of human threat classification. The council debated for weeks. Many members refused to believe the reports. They had been taught all their lives that humans were dangerous. They could not accept that everything they knew was wrong. But then other reports started coming in. Humans had been sent to other stations as part of the exchange program. And everywhere they went, the same thing happened. They made friends. They cared for the young. They protected the weak. They were not monsters at all. One report from a distant trading post was particularly surprising. A human had found a group of abandoned cubs, orphans of a species that had been at war. Instead of ignoring them or hurting them, the human had adopted all 7 of them. He had fed them, clothed them, and found them proper homes. When asked why, he simply said, "They were alone. They needed someone. I was there." The council could not ignore this pattern. Slowly, carefully, they began to change their official position. On Station Harmony 7, the day of the announcement was a celebration. "Attention all residents," the station computer announced. "The Galactic Council has issued a new classification for the human species. Threat assessment has been updated from extinction-level danger to potential ally. Humans are no longer considered a threat to station safety. Thank you for your attention." The cheering could be heard throughout the station. In her quarters, Yuna sat with the 3 cubs, Junho, Minji, and Taeyang on her lap. Corporal Hana stood nearby with a rare smile on her face. Commander Tejo stood in the doorway, watching the scene with something like warmth in his yellow eyes. "We are not monsters anymore," Yuna said softly, mostly to herself. "You were never monsters," Minji said seriously. "You were just different." "Different is not bad. That is very wise, little one. My grandmother says I am the wisest cub on the station," Minji replied proudly. Tejo laughed at that. It was the first time Yuna had heard him laugh. It was a rough sound, like stones rolling down a hill. But it was genuine. "The official classification still has warnings," he said. "Humans are listed as dangerous when their loved ones are threatened. We added a note that says, humans will fight to protect those they care about." Yuna nodded. "That is fair. We will do anything for those we love. It is perhaps our greatest strength and our greatest weakness." "It is not a weakness," Hana said firmly. "It is what makes you special. Most species protect only their own kind. Humans protect anyone who needs protection, even apex predators," Tejo added with a touch of humor. "We have received reports of humans keeping predator species as companions. They call them pets. They sleep with them, feed them, and treat them like family. Dogs and cats," Yuna confirmed. "And many others. Humans have a habit of adopting anything that needs love. Even us," Junho said happily. "You adopted us, did you not?" Yuna hugged the little cub close. "I suppose I did. You are part of my family now. All of you." The 3 cubs snuggled closer. Taeyang, who was usually too proud to be soft, pressed his small face against Yuna's shoulder. Minji held her hand tightly. Junho wrapped his arms around her waist and purred with contentment. Tejo watched this with wonder. The apex predator had become a mother figure to his grandchildren. The monster had become family. "I must report to the council," he said after a moment. "They want regular updates on your progress, Lieutenant. I believe my next report will be very positive. Thank you, Commander, for giving me a chance." Tejo paused at the door. "Thank you, Lieutenant, for teaching an old Valari that he was wrong." He left, and Hana followed him after giving Yuna a small wave. The cubs stayed where they were, too comfortable to move. "Tell us another story about Earth," Taeyang murmured sleepily. "Tell us about the animals that swim in the water." "The fish?" Yuna smiled. "Or do you mean the bigger ones? The ones that breathe air like us?" "The big ones. The ones that sing," Ah, the whales. Yuna settled back against the pillows, the cubs warm against her body. Whales are very special creatures. They are huge, bigger than this room, bigger than this whole section of the station. But they are gentle. They swim through the oceans and sing songs to each other. Songs that travel for hundreds of kilometers. What do they sing about? Minji asked with wonder. No one knows for certain. Maybe they sing about food and family. Maybe they sing about love and loss. Maybe they just sing because it feels good to make music. R. The cubs listened in sleepy silence. Outside the window, the stars sparkled in the endless dark. Inside, there was warmth and love, and the soft voice of a human telling stories. Yuna looked down at the three small creatures sleeping against her. She thought about everything she had experienced since arriving at this station. The fear, the loneliness, the slow building of trust. It had been hard. There had been moments when she wanted to give up. But now, holding these children who trusted her completely, she knew it had all been worth it. She was not a monster. She had never been a monster. She was human. And humans, as the galaxy was finally learning, were not something to fear. They were something to cherish. Because humans would cross the stars for those they loved. They would fight and bleed and die for those who needed protection. They would adopt any creature, any species, any being that needed care. They were dangerous, yes. But only to those who threatened the innocent. To everyone else, they were the softest guardians in the universe. The station computer had one final update to add to its files, submitted by Commander Tejo himself. Species: human. Classification: apex predator. Updated note: do not harm anything they consider cute. Do not threaten their adopted family members. Do not make their cubs cry. If these rules are followed, humans are excellent allies and loyal friends. Warning remains in effect. They are still extremely dangerous, but only to those who deserve it. And in a small room in Section 7B, a human and 3 alien cubs slept peacefully together, dreaming of stars and whales and a galaxy where different was not bad at all.